thank you all for joining us today to celebrate Ann Roberts at Two Rivers Mansion. I want to thank the Friends of Two Rivers Mansion for allowing us to hold this event here today. I'd like to also thank Littman Distributors for providing the beer and wine. Thank you both, and the individual hosts from the board of NHF who sponsored this event. Thank you all. Your contributions are always greatly appreciated. Please know that the 1802 house is open, so you can tour that. You are also welcome to go upstairs and tour the whole house and on your own. Okay. Phil Claiborne is the founder and current board president of the Friends of Two Rivers Mansion. We can look around us now and see the results of all of his efforts. Phil was a member of the City Council from 2007 to 2015 and was extremely supportive of the Metro Historical Commission. Phil is a talented artist who's used his work to support Two Rivers Mansion. Please welcome Phil Claiborne.
Thank you, Jill, and welcome each one of you. On behalf of the Friends of Two Rivers, Director Odom and Metro Parks, we are excited that you're here to share this beautiful place. If you haven't, you may or may not know, but since February of 2024, this building was virtually scaffolded totally. I said we had the biggest erector set anywhere in Tennessee. But there's virtually not a single inch of this exterior of this building that hadn't been touched during those 20 months. And during that period of time, as a friends group, we took the opportunity to do some things inside with some new paint, new wallpaper, reclaimed an original bedroom from a storage area upstairs. And so I too want to encourage you, while you're here, to take the time to wander around and just explore the building, the 1802 house, and see the glory that's been restored to this Nashville gem. I started the Friends of Two Rivers in 2010. Later, before Director Lynch retired, he told me that the Parks Board was looking to board this place up in 2010 because of structural issues that created too many liabilities for the parks. So I'm extremely proud to have been part of saving this place and making it available to people. We have a couple of board members. Shane Dennison is here. Where are you, Shane? And Jeff Syracuse. Jeff, are you in the room somewhere? He's in the back. Jeff was my successor in the council, and he's also my vice president and successor. I'm in the waning days of my presidency, and Jeff will take the reins and move the Friends group forward. So again, I just want to take a brief moment for a commercial pause. We are always looking for members, and we are in the process currently of looking for some new board members to replace some folks that are rotating off of our board. So if you have an interest in that, there's some artwork. Quite a bit of it is mine. That's out there on the table. If you'd like to take something home as a memorial today, Jeff will be able to help you with that. And so I think that's, we have a lot of events that are still planned for the remainder of this year here, and you can see all of those things by going to our website at friendsoftworivers.com. And the most immediate of those is coming up this coming Saturday evening out here on the back lawn. We'll have the Moonlighters playing an evening concert under the stars. So bring your lawn chairs, your blankets. We'll have food trucks, and it'll be an enjoyable evening. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you, Jill, for arranging this to honor our guest here. And I'm sure that she's very appreciative of all of your presence here in her honor. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. Our next speaker's civic leadership has been enormously supportive in preserving the history that makes Nashville unique. He worked closely with Ann Roberts in her role as Executive Director of Metro Historical Commission, and together they truly made a difference. Please join me in welcoming former Mayor Bill Purcell.
largest gathering of the usual suspects since Humphrey Bogart and Claude Rains left Casablanca some years ago. And I want to say to the people in the far room, Tim Walker, for example, unless you want to be identified forever as a sinner, you should move a little closer to the church. There's really plenty of room up in here in this space, and I encourage that, Jeff, as well. Thanks to Phil Claiborne as well for his leadership on the council, for giving us Jeff Syracuse, and for his leadership now, quite frankly, in this important work here. Ann Roberts was born and raised in Arkansas. Like many of us, though, when it came time to go to college, she made a choice. And her choice was to come to Tennessee, and she went to Rhodes. Graduating from Rhodes, she spent the next several years in Memphis, taught school, began to raise a family there in Memphis. But in 1970, they came to Nashville, and the world would never be the same. She continued raising those kids here, but in 1976, she determined she needed a job, and she called Maydeen Everly. And Maydeen, they met each other through some fundraising or volunteer work, I guess, and she said to Maydeen, I need a job. And Maydeen said, I'm just now writing a job description. That call at that moment was more than fortuitous, I think. When Maydeen described what she wanted, it was clear that to Ann that she could do exactly that. Her job was going to be publicity, publications, and public events. As a former school teacher, an English literature major at Rhodes, just perfect. She knew nothing about historical preservation. She did not even know there was such a thing, a career as historical preservation, but she knew Maydeen needed her help, and she came to work. And she stayed in that position until 1982. It's not a very long run. 5 years later, Maydeen says, I'm going to, I think, Channel 5. Pat reminds me. And how could I forget? And the logical choice at that point was Ann Roberts. One day after she is sworn in as the executive director, you will find her opining on the pages of the Tennessean. She says, revitalization of Union Station and Lower Broadway will be the priorities for this historical commission in the year ahead. And so it was. Now, many of you will remember a time, that's a nice thing about having the usual suspects, we have many of the same memories. When I got here in 1976 to go to law school, and he was here until 1979, the only reason that anyone that I knew ever went downtown was undoubtedly for a reason that you would not write home to your mother at all. But Ann saw that it should be different, that it should be much different. And in fact, very quickly, she's opining and ultimately successful for Union Station for reasons that she's never fully described, frankly, because as focused as she was on the living and the vibrancy of downtown, she also became, like Jim Hoover, fascinated with the National City Cemetery, which benefited greatly from her attention at that time. The Ryman, which was clearly in the way of progress and needed to come down, Ann said, and many others joined her in saying no. Fort Negley, which had been basically sealed up following its restoration by the WPA, because we weren't very interested in the history of Fort Negley in any respect. But Ann was, and the Historic Commission was interested in Fort Negley. Sunnyside Mansion, much like this, was a place of great importance, but not to the city of Nashville. But Ann, and many of you, said something different. The Shelby Street Bridge was just a hunk of metal in the middle of the river. In fact, the on and off ramps had been destroyed to it. It just sat there at the time I became mayor. And Ann and others had a vision that it could and should be something different and something better. But it's on 2nd Avenue, really, for me, as frankly, a younger man, and then also as the mayor. I think it's most useful for us to focus just for a couple of minutes. Because 2nd Avenue was a place that this city did not appreciate. Did not appreciate in the same way we didn't appreciate any of the buildings that went around the courthouse. All of them had been demolished at one time or another, mostly for a parking lot. We had demolished much of the downtown through redevelopment. We demolished much of the city through redevelopment. believing that if we could drive people from the city that we would be successful. It was the worst idea we ever had, but we were enormously successful, maybe more successful than any city in America. By 1999, there were only 900 people living in the downtown of the city of Nashville. But Anne saw that there was something in the fabric of our city that was critical and crucial. That's not what the city thought at that time. Most powerful business leaders and forces in the city, some of the most powerful and best-named lawyers in the city, joined forces with a company called Algernon Blair in the early 1980s. Algernon Blair said the only way to save Second Avenue is to tear it down. We have to tear down basically the beginning there, and you'll see the spot to this day there at the corner of Church and Second. We need to tear it down. And in fact, there's a rather remarkable headline in the 1986 Tennessean: Second Avenue's future hinges on economic success, proponents of a 21-story tower say. But in that same story, Anne is quoted as saying that's not true at all. We need to protect Second Avenue. We need to protect what makes it special. We need to protect the Nashville that was so that it can be the Nashville that it should be. And ultimately, and they fought through Chancery Court and lost, they fought into the appeals court and lost, they lost and lost and lost until they won. The building itself was burned down mysteriously, probably through arson. They kept fighting anyway because they said what this is who we are, and it must be protected and preserved. And ultimately, they overcame all of the forces. And this is worth reflecting on, not just as a part of history, but maybe a little bit at this moment in our history as well. What one person and 2 people and 10 people and 20 people can do at any point, no matter how strong the forces may appear to be on the other side. And they did just that. And that same message was carried forward now 20 years later when Broadway was threatened by a giant hotel which was going to spring up and ultimately begin frankly the destruction of much of what we now see on Lower Broadway. And it was preserved as Second had been preserved by an overlay that Anne's fingerprints and her history are all over. She co-founded, together with Ann Eden and Tim Walker, this very group that brings us here together because it's always been the long play for Anne, quite frankly. When you read through, as I did earlier today, all of the stories in the Tennessean, one after the other after the other, she's there like Forrest Gump in every suddenly Anne pops up. There she is, opining clearly and refusing to be moved. At one point she says, well, it is a little unusual that Tootsie's Orchid Lounge is going to be orchid. It's not exactly an historic color, but it's absolutely right that it should be orchid. And so there she is, suddenly proclaiming on the right color for a bar downtown. Earlier this year, when she was being recommended for and ultimately received the Samuel Morgan Lifetime Service Award from the American Institute of Architects, I sent the following words, and I leave you with them now. Ann Roberts has worked harder and more successfully than any Nashvilleian ever to keep Nashville, Nashville. From the beginning of our preservation movement, she took the lead in making the public and all of our officials understand the essential importance of our architecture in our sense of place and purpose. Anne has advocated from that beginning until today to assure the strength and enforcement of our existing guidelines, as well as the need for greater protection at all the critical moments in our growth and development. She has done this work as an employee of the metropolitan government and as a private citizen, always speaking truth to power in the nicest, but the most demanding and insistent way. In the process, generations of Nashvilleians, old and new, have come to appreciate the critical role of architecture in defining our past, our present, and just as certainly, our future. Without Ann Roberts, we would be mistaken for Charlotte or San Diego or who knows where, all good cities, but not Nashville. The woman who made sure that Nashville would always be Nashville and got us to agree, Ann Roberts.
I can say I've had a standing ovation because all of you all are standing. And I have to say something before I say what I had really planned to say, and that is Bill's reference to my always being polite. I was once described in the Nashville scene as doggedly polite. So, anyway, but I want to say thank you to Phil for your long-time commitment to the Historical Commission and to Two Rivers. And then, Bill, I had to think about some things that you mentioned and about your own contributions to preservation. The city cemetery, which you mentioned, that was restored during your term. The courthouse, which had fallen into sort of a shabby state, was completely redone. The whole building evacuated so that that work could be done. That was major. And then there was Fort Negley. For years, when I would start to type in Fort Negley, I would say Fort, and then I would type in N-E-G-L, and neglect would pop up. So that was literal. And finally, thanks to Bill Purcell, an interpretive center was built there, and that really removed it from that neglected state. There were a lot of people who cared about it and had been working on it, but it took that major investment. And then there was the move of the Historical Commission and Historic Zoning Commissions to Sunnyside, which was another neglected building. It stood vacant for a long time. No one wanted it. And then Bill Purcell called me and said, if you all will move out there, the city will fix it up. So I think that's a pretty remarkable, that's just the top. That's just skimming the top. But those were some pretty amazing things. So thank you, Bill Purcell, very much for all of that. What I really want, I wanted to start by saying thank you for being here. And as I look around, it is the usual suspects. It is the groupies. It's the people whom I have known for decades. I don't know that there's anyone here whom I haven't known for at least 2 or 3 decades. Some of you I've watched grow up. Some I've watched you grow up in lots of ways, but certainly some I've watched from teenage years, and so you all are very special. As I look out here at you all, I think about how over these years we have laughed, we have learned from each other, we know about each other's families, we have stood up for things together, and many of you are people who were party to all the things that I am getting credit for right now. None of it was done by itself, by one person. It always took a village, and will continue to always take a village. That's the nature of this kind of work. I want to thank the Historical Foundation and say a little bit about the beginnings of that. In 2011, the Historical Commission budget, along with most other city department budgets, was being cut. That was the aftermath of the 2008 crash, and money was tight. So Ann Eden and Tim Walker were really the people who stepped up first to say, we need a Fritz group. So just to say a little bit about Ann, who was the first president of the foundation, her history with the Historical Commission was amazing. She was on the Historical Commission for 34 years. Wow. She was on the Historic Zoning Commission for 25 years, and she was its chair for 19 years. That's really a public servant. And she was not done when she rotated off the commission. And that's when she and Tim, and I came along for the ride, I say. It was, I loved doing it, I loved being with them. And through the work of that foundation, a lot of gaps have been filled. We've been, I think, a really engaged board. I think right now, I'm so proud of the board and all of the different ways that different board members are stepping up. So watch for that, and thank you very much for your support of the foundation. It merits your support. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ann. We all thank you for all you've done. That's it for our program today. Please enjoy the tour of the house and the small house, the 1802 house. There are plenty of refreshments, so have a great afternoon, and thank you again for coming.